Good evening. How's everybody doing on a Thursday? Yom Hamishi. What a day. We have officially reached the halfway point of our 7.5-year journey through the Talmud today. Wow. Yasher Koach, may you be strengthened. I know there's a lot of people here today who were with us on the first day and every day or nearly every day since. What a wonderful, wonderful accomplishment we're doing together. Thank you for lifting me up, strengthening me, supporting me in teaching this class. Thank you for coming every day. Without the class, I'm truly nothing. I'd just be a guy going blah, blah, blah. But together we have really done a lot of pages, learned a lot of principles, and very nice. It's almost perfect that today, as we reach the halfway point of our journey, our actual page. I probably should have made it a key daf. It's a great page. First half is kind of winding up what we've been talking about, a little bit more technical and challenging. Second half, we're going to start a new Mishna, and it's a classic, some really, really beautiful ideas in there that we read about in the daily prayers every day, and this is a source for it. This is a great page to have as our halfway point through the Talmud. Let's light up the darkness. Who's in the house on a Thursday? Yehuda in South Carolina, Bill in mid-Missouri, Sandy in Michigan, Carla in Brazil, Melissa in Great Neck, Sharon in New Jersey, Paul in Chicago, Guy in Ohio, Bella in Florida, Duncan in Alabama, Paul in the Great Northwest, Shandora in the Bronx, Belle in Texas, Tom in Pennsylvania, Stephen in New Hampshire, Christo checking in. He is happy. Shandora, woohoo! Tom, halfway. People are enjoying that we're halfway. Awesome. And also Marjorie in Georgia, Eve in Florida, Marie in Freeport. Welcome, everybody. What we're listening to during the timer was still our Slichas prayers from a couple weeks ago, getting ready for Rosh Hashanah. We're in the days of awe. What a beautiful thing that we're learning together every day during the days of awe. Our daf, Lamed Tes, right? Lamed Tes. Here is page 39, here in Tractate Kiddushin, the 20th volume of the Talmud. Continuing our discussion of Mishnah number 10 here in chapter 1. And tonight we'll open, God willing, Mishnah number 11 in chapter 1. So, we've been making a distinction between mitzvahs that apply in the land of Israel only and that don't apply outside the land of Israel. Most, the vast majority of mitzvahs, commandments are incumbent on Jews no matter where they live. Some only apply in the land of Israel because they're tied to the land of Israel. Some appear to be tied to the land, but might still apply outside of Israel, and we've been talking about that. We picked this up near the top of 39a. With regard to the prohibition of orlah, the prohibition on eating fruit from trees in the first 3 years of the tree's life. You start eating the fruit from a tree in the 4th year. So with regard to the prohibition of orlah outside of the land of Israel, outside of Eretz Yisrael, the Gemara relates that Levi said to Shmuel, Arioch, Shmuel's nickname, Supply me with such food as I will not pick it on my own, and if you do so, I will eat it. There is no reason for concern with regard to orlah outside of Eretz Yisrael. Just to make it clear where we're headed with this discussion, is that orlah applies in the land of Israel by Torah law, that you can't eat fruit from trees in their first 3 years. And because it's by Torah law, within the land of Israel, in cases of uncertainty, you're not sure how old the tree was. It might have been less than 4 years old, it might not. In cases of uncertainty, the fruit is prohibited. Outside of the land of Israel, if it's definitely orlah, then it's prohibited. But if it's uncertain that it might be orlah, then it is permitted. Right? That's the difference between inside and outside the land of Israel with respect to orlah. So that's where we're headed. Now, says Levi to Shmuel, there is no reason for concern with regard to orlah outside of Eretz Yisrael. Rav Avia and Rabba bar Rav Hanan would supply produce whose orlah status was uncertain for each other, as it is forbidden only if one takes the orlah on his own. The sharp sages of Pumbedisa said the prohibition of orlah does not apply at all outside of Eretz Yisrael. That is not where we end up. Rav Yehuda sent a question to Rabbi Yochanan concerning the law with regard to orlah outside of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan sent him the following response. Conceal, meaning do not publicize the halacha, the law, that produce whose orlah status is uncertain is permitted. And destroy, i.e. prohibit entirely, produce whose orlah status is certain. And with regard to the produce of those who are lenient in this halacha, declare that it requires interment, as it is prohibited to derive benefit from such produce. And whoever says that there is no prohibition of orlah outside of Eretz Yisrael will have neither a child nor a grandchild who shall cast the line by lot in the congregation of the Lord. A quote from Micah 2:5. Right? So this particular sage was very emphatic that orlah does apply outside of Eretz Yisrael to the full extent of the law, but he was overruled by the majority. And the Gemara asks, and in accordance with whose opinion do the sharp sages of Pumbedisa hold when they state this law? And the Gemara answers, they hold in accordance with that which is taught in a baraisa. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yosei, says in the name of Rabbi Yosei ben Durmaska, who said in the name of Rabbi Yosei HaGalili, who said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, who said in the name of Rabbi Eliezer the Great, the prohibition of orlah does not apply outside of Eretz Yisrael. Now the Gemara expresses surprise at this ruling. But does it not apply? Does Rabbi Eliezer maintain that the prohibition of orlah does not apply outside of Eretz Yisrael? But didn't we learn in the Mishna that Rabbi Eliezer says even the new crop? Meaning that we were told that 3 of these laws do apply outside of Eretz Yisrael, even though they're related to the land. Right? One was growing diverse kinds, kilayim. The other was orlah, and the third was the new crop that we don't eat from it until the Omer offering has been brought on the second day of Passover. Now, when Rabbi Eliezer says even the new crop, he seems to be implying the first 2 do apply outside of Israel, and also the new crop, whereas the ones who came before him in the Mishnah just seem to be saying orlah and kilayim apply outside of Israel, and then Rabbi Eliezer says, yes, orlah, kilayim, and even the new crop. It seems like he was saying that. But didn't we learn in the Mishnah that Rabbi Eliezer says even the new crop, which indicates that he agrees that orlah and kilayim, right, not growing grain in a vineyard, are forbidden outside of Eretz Yisrael. And so the Gemara answers that one should not teach that Rabbi Eliezer said even the new crop, but rather teach only the words the new crop. I.e., Rabbi Eliezer maintains that only the prohibition on eating the new crop before Passover applies outside of Eretz Yisrael, but that he believes orlah and kilayim do not apply outside of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Asi says that Rabbi Yochanan says orlah is forbidden outside of Eretz Yisrael by a halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai. Halacha leMoshe miSinai. Rabbi Zera said to Rabbi Asi, but isn't it taught in a baraisa with regard to produce whose status concerning orlah is uncertain? In Eretz Yisrael, it is forbidden. In Syria, it is permitted. And outside of Eretz Yisrael, one goes down and gathers it. Not only is it permitted, but you can even gather it. And if orlah is forbidden outside of Eretz Yisrael by a halacha lemoshe misinai, why is produce whose status concerning orlah uncertain, whose produce concerning orlah is uncertain, why would it be permitted in Syria? And Rabbi Zera was dismayed for a while. Daniel 4:16 is where they get this quote, was dismayed for a while. And then Rabbi Asi said to him, say that it is stated like this. I.e., explain the halakha transmitted to Moses at Sinai was that outside of Eretz Yisrael, produce whose status concerning orlah is uncertain, that's permitted, and produce whose status concerning orlah is certain, that is forbidden. If we know it's orlah, that it came from a tree younger than 4 years old, we cannot eat it even outside of Israel. If we are merely uncertain whether it came from such a tree, then it is permitted outside of Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, uncertain orlah prohibited. New subject. Rabbi Asi says that Rabbi Yochanan says offenders are flogged for transgressing the prohibition of diverse kinds. Kilayim. This idea of you can't plant wheat or vegetables for that matter in the middle of a vineyard, right? You don't grow different kinds of plants in a mixture like this, just like you don't harness an ox and a donkey together to pull a cart. These are chukim, right? These are laws that we don't know why God said so. We just do it because God said so. So, Rabbi Asi says that Rabbi Yochanan says offenders who commit kilayim, planting diverse kinds, let's say grain in a vineyard, they are flogged for transgressing that prohibition. Even outside of Israel, of Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because it's by Torah law. Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Yosei, said to him, but didn't we learn in the Mishna in Tractate Orlah that the prohibition of diverse kinds outside of Eretz Yisrael applies only by rabbinic law, not by Torah law. So the Gemara answers, this is not difficult. The Mishnah here is referring to diverse kinds in a vineyard, which is prohibited outside of Eretz Yisrael by rabbinic law. Whereas there, Rabbi Yochanan's statement is referring to grafting of a tree onto a different species, which would seem to be something prohibited by Torah law. Now the Gemara adds that this halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Shmuel. As Shmuel says, the verse states, you shall keep my statutes, Leviticus 19:19, which means that one must keep even the statutes that I have already instituted for you when you were merely descendants of Noah, meaning the Noahide commandments, right? The Noahide commandments are the 7 commandments, and some would say categories of commandments, that were given to Noah after he and his family emerged from the ark. And those Noahide commandments are, all human beings are obligated in them, as opposed to the 613 commandments in which Jews are obligated. So what he's saying here is, well, when I gave you the Torah and the 10 commandments and the 613 commandments that obligate Jews, I didn't say, and you're excused from the Noahide commandments. Those also apply to you. I think they're pretty well covered within the 613, but at any rate. And they include to know who God is, do not blaspheme God, do not murder, establish courts of law, don't eat a limb off a living animal, do not commit sexual transgression, etc. So what is he saying? Right. So the verse states, you shall keep my statutes, and this means that you must keep even the statutes I have already instituted for you when you were merely descendants of Noah, before the giving of the Torah. So Shmuel elaborates, this is referring to the prohibitions stated in that same verse. You shall not let your cattle gender with a diverse kind. You shall not sow your field with 2 kinds of seed. Additionally, now those are not normally considered Noahide commandments, but they seem to have been given in the same place as this general catch-all, you shall keep my statutes. So additionally, the juxtaposition of these prohibitions teaches that just as the prohibition of diverse kinds stated with regard to your animal applies only to mating one species with another, so too the prohibition of diverse kinds with regard to your field is referring only to grafting one type of tree to another type. And it does not apply to planting two species together. Furthermore, just as the prohibition of diverse kinds with regard to your animal applies both in Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael, as this prohibition does not relate to the land, so too the prohibition against grafting, one kind of tree onto another, does not relate to the land of Israel. So too the prohibition against grafting your field applies both in Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael. And by the way, where did this end up? By Torah law, one who grafts one species of tree onto another, or who grafts a vegetable and a tree together, is flogged. And this prohibition applies both inside and outside of Eretz Yisrael, in accordance with the opinion of Shmuel. So it's pretty interesting, what you're sort of seeing here. And let's put the mule aside, because it seems like maybe breeding a donkey and a horse, I don't know if that's prohibited or not. But it seems like otherwise you shouldn't be, mating different species of animals together. And nor should you sort of be creating new plants. You can, obviously there's breeding plants where you can sort of select for favorable traits, and, gradually dogs become all different kinds of breeds of dogs. But, if you were trying to make a dog and a cat have offspring together, that would seem to be prohibited by this law. The Gemara asks, but isn't it written your field, which indicates that the field belongs to you in your portion of Eretz Yisrael? And the Gemara answers, that verse serves to exclude the prohibition of diverse kinds of seeds, which does not apply outside of Eretz Yisrael. Planting different types of seeds together is prohibited only in Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara relates, Rav Hanan and Rav Anan were once going together on a road outside of Eretz Yisrael, and they saw a certain man planting seeds of diverse kinds together. And one of them said to the other, let the master come and ostracize this man, as he is performing a prohibited act. And the other said to him, these laws are not understood by you. You do not understand this law. And furthermore, they saw a certain man was planting wheat and barley between grapevines. That's a classic example of kilayim. One of them said to the other, let the master come and ostracize him for acting this way. And he again said to him, you do not understand these laws. They are not clear to you. And he explained, don't we hold in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yoshia, who says, one who sows diverse kinds is not liable, right, who plants diverse kinds is not liable by Torah law until he sows wheat and barley and grapeseed with a single hand motion, i.e. by sowing in the vineyard. He violates the prohibition of diverse kinds that applies to seeds and to the vineyard simultaneously. Since this man was not planting in that manner, he should not be ostracized, because this is outside of Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara relates, Rav Yosef was mixing diverse seeds and planting them. And Abaye said to him, but didn't we learn in the Mishna that mixing diverse kinds of seeds is prohibited outside of Eretz Yisrael by rabbinic law? Rav Yosef said to him, this is not difficult, as here the Mishnah is referring to diverse kinds in a vineyard. And there I am planting legally because I am planting only diverse kinds of seeds, not in a vineyard. And the reason for the difference between these two cases is as follows. With regard to planting diverse kinds in a vineyard, which in Eretz Yisrael is prohibited, even with regard to deriving benefit from that produce. Not only are you not allowed to eat it, you can't even sell it, to a Gentile who is permitted to eat it. You cannot derive benefit from the produce of kilayim in Eretz Yisrael. So with regard to that law, planting diverse kinds in a vineyard, which in Eretz Yisrael is prohibited, even with regard to deriving benefit, the sages issued a decree prohibiting this mixture outside of Eretz Yisrael as well. Conversely, with regard to planting diverse kinds of seeds, which in Eretz Yisrael is not prohibited with regard to deriving benefit, the sages did not issue a decree prohibiting them outside of Eretz Yisrael. Rav Yosef then said, the matter that I said, i.e. that diverse kinds of seeds are entirely permitted outside of Eretz Yisrael is not so. And the proof is that Rav planted the garden around the study hall in rows of different species. And what is the reason that he did that rather than plant different species together? Is it not because he was concerned about mixtures of diverse kinds? And Abaye said to him, that is not proof. Granted, if he taught us this halacha, this law, through his actions, and he was careful to plant 4 different species along the 4 sides of the garden bed and one in the middle so that there would be space between them, then it works out well. That's somebody who's being very meticulous about not committing kilayim. But here, where Rav actually planted each species in its own bed, he did so for beautification, i.e. to improve the appearance of the garden in front of the study hall. Alternatively, the reason Rav planted this way is due to the trouble that would be caused to the attendant. When his attendant would be sent to fetch a certain type of vegetable from the garden, he would not need to search for it, but would know where the different vegetables were planted. Therefore, this does not prove that Rav was concerned about diverse kinds outside of Eretz Yisrael. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 10. We are on 39b, and now we're hitting a very, very important Mishnah and a beautiful discussion which follows. And it's the perfect time of the year during the 10 days to be talking about the fact that we are rewarded for all our good deeds and held accountable for all our transgressions. And for most people, the balance between these two categories is fragile. And one more mitzvah, one more good deed, fulfilling one more commandment could tip the scales in your favor and bring you such a reward, not only in this world, but in the world to come. Let's dig in. Mishnah number 11, chapter 1, tractate Kiddushin. Anyone who performs one mitzvah has goodness bestowed upon him. His life is lengthened, and he inherits the land, meaning life in the world to come. Land here is a metaphor for life in the world to come, the next world. And anyone who does not perform one mitzvah does not have goodness bestowed upon him. His life is not lengthened, and he does not inherit the land of the world to come. That's the Mishnah. Now, is he saying that if you've only done one mitzvah in your whole life, okay, you got to share in the world to come, and your days are lengthened, etc., but all your other deeds are sins? Or is he saying that, even if all your deeds are good, but you commit one transgression, you lose your share in the world to come? God forbid. What this is really saying is each mitzvah brings you a little closer. Each transgression takes you a little further away. And the tipping point is so fragile. Who knows if the next mitzvah you're thinking about doing, do it. Because if you get lazy and don't do it, that might be the one that keeps you out of the world to come. Here's the Gemara. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from a Mishna and tractate Peah. These are the matters that a person engages in and enjoys their profits in this world, and the principle remains for him in the world to come. We read this every morning in the prayer book. Very, very important passage. Right? So now this is the list of mitzvahs that not only, is God writing it all down, keeping track in a book, all your good deeds, all your transgressions, for your eventual dispensation, right? When you leave this world and you are allotted a place in the world to come, right? It's not just heaven and hell. There's a million places where you could end up even in heaven. And depending on your deeds in this world, you're going to get to the starting line in the next world, at a much more favorable position or not. Okay? So that's with everything. But there are some deeds that are so beautiful and valuable that you're going to be rewarded for them, or perhaps they are their own reward, even in this world. Now, we know that in this world, it very often happens that righteous people suffer and wicked people prosper. If it was utterly revealed to us here exactly how everything works, and that, every good deed you get rewarded for it, every bad deed you don't, then God's presence would not be hidden in this world. The purpose of this world is that God's presence is hidden so that we can make free choices. And that's why it's not apparent to us in our limited perspective and limited lifespans how God, balances out and rewards all good deeds and holds people accountable for all their bad deeds. But having said all of that, there are a few mitzvahs that you do see reward for them in this world. And these are they. These are the matters that a person engages in and enjoys their profits in this world, and the principle remains for him in the world to come. And they are honoring one's father and mother, acts of loving kindness, hospitality toward guests, bringing peace between one person and another, and Torah study is equal to all of them. This indicates that one is rewarded in this world only for fulfilling these mitzvahs, but not for fulfilling all mitzvahs? No, that cannot be. Rav Yehuda said that this is what the Mishnah is saying. Anyone who performs one mitzvah in addition to his other merits, and thereby tilts the scale of all his deeds to the side of righteousness, this person has goodness bestowed upon him, and he is compared to one who fulfills the entire Torah. And the Gemara asks, one can learn by inference from here that with regard to these mitzvahs that are listed in the Mishnah and Tractate Peah, one is rewarded even for one of them, notwithstanding the fact that overall his sins are more numerous. And Rav Shemaiah said the other Mishnah serves to say that if one's sins and merits were of equal balance, i.e. he has accrued an equal amount of merit and sin, one of these mitzvahs tilts the scale in his favor. The Gemara further asks, and does anyone who performs one mitzvah in addition to his other merits have goodness bestowed upon him in this world? The Gemara raises a contradiction from a baraisa. Anyone whose merits are greater than his sins is punished with suffering in this world. Wait, what? Why would you say that? Somebody whose merits are greater than his sins, why would he be punished in this world? Listen up. Go away, spider. Listen up. Anyone whose merits are greater than his sins is punished with suffering in order to cleanse his sins in this world and enable him to merit full reward for his mitzvahs in the world to come. And due to this punishment, he appears to observers like one who burned the entire Torah without leaving even one letter remaining of it. Conversely, anyone whose sins are greater than his merits has goodness bestowed upon him in this world, and he appears like one who has fulfilled the entire Torah without lacking the fulfillment of even one letter of it. In other words, when you see the wicked prosper, what you're seeing is this is their whole reward. In this world, they're going to have a big reward. And then their brief, incandescent little lifespan, a human lifespan, 80, 90, 100, 120 years, alongside eternity, what? They used up their reward during their brief human lifespan, and in the next world, what? They're going to get a lowly, lowly place, maybe a place of suffering, maybe a place of jealousy, maybe a place of like, what was I thinking? And live there forever. Whereas when you see righteous people suffering in this world, the sages are saying, okay, he's suffering in this world, but he's getting all his suffering out of the way. And then his huge stockpile of mitzvahs are going to place him in a very high level indeed in the next world. Abaye said, when the Mishnah said that he is rewarded, it means that he has one good day and one bad day. Meaning, he is rewarded for the mitzvahs he performs. Nevertheless, occasionally he also has bad days, which cleanse him of his sins. And the Baraisa is referring to those days. And Rava said that the Mishnah and this Baraisa Rava said that the Mishnah and this Baraisa represent two different opinions. In accordance with whose opinion is this Baraisa? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov, who says there is no reward for the performance of a mitzvah in this world, as one is rewarded for mitzvahs only in the world to come. As it is taught in a Baraisa that Rabbi Yaakov says, there is not a single mitzvah written in the Torah whose reward is stated alongside it. which is not dependent on the resurrection of the dead, i.e. the reward is actually bestowed in the world to come after the resurrection of the dead. Now, here they're alluding to something. The world to come sort of has two meanings. And that's why typically when we talk about, heaven and moving on to the next world, we call that the world of souls, right? When you die, when your body dies and your soul moves on, you return to the world of souls from which you come, and that is an entirely spiritual world. But we also believe that when the Messiah comes, when Mashiach comes, there will be resurrection of the dead. And then all the righteous people who lived in the past will be brought back into their bodies. Now that's a special treat, as it were, because in the spiritual world, as lofty and amazing and incredible and unimaginable as that is, what's not possible is doing mitzvahs with the human body in the human world. So people will have an opportunity to come back into this world and kind of perfected human bodies when there is resurrection of the dead. So both of those, coming back into this world and going to the world of souls, are often called olam haba, the world to come. Now, so Rabbi Yaakov is saying that there is not a single mitzvah written in the Torah whose reward is stated alongside it, which is not actually dependent on the resurrection of the dead, i.e. the reward is actually bestowed in the world to come after the resurrection of the dead. And what does this mean? With regard to honoring one's father and mother, it is written that your days may be long and that it may go well with you. And with regard to the dispatch of the mother bird from the nest, when you go to collect the chicks or the eggs, it is written that it may be well with you and that you may prolong your days. So you might think that a person who's meticulous about honoring his mother and father is guaranteed to live a long life and have a reward where everything is great. And, doesn't always happen, right? And likewise, somebody who has the opportunity, you can't always, this mitzvah only happens when you happen to find, you shouldn't go looking for it, a mother bird sitting on eggs or chicks, and you kind of shoo away the mother, and then you could pick up an egg or a chick and put it back. You don't have to go collect the eggs. You could actually just put them back, and then the mother returns, and you've performed that mitzvah. It's a very simple mitzvah. And it says that you will live a long time and it will be well with you if you do that. But is it the case that everyone who's performed that mitzvah has a perfect life? Obviously not. So, and not only that, but despite this promise in the Torah that a person will have a long life and it will go well if he does those two mitzvahs, honoring the parents and shooing away the mother bird, despite this, it occurred that there was one whose father said to him, "Climb to the top of the building and fetch me chicks." And he climbed to the top of the building and dispatched the mother bird and took the young, thereby simultaneously fulfilling the mitzvah to dispatch the mother bird from the nest and the mitzvah to honor one's parents, because his father told him to go. But upon his return, he fell and died. Where is the goodness of the days of this person? And where is the length of days of this person? Rather, the verse that it may be well with you means in the world where all is well, the world to come. And that your days may be long, this is referring to the world that is entirely long, the world to come. And the Gemara asks, but perhaps this incident never occurred. It is possible that everyone who performs these mitzvahs is rewarded in this world, and the situation described by Rabbi Yaakov never happened. Maybe that's a hypothetical. And the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yaakov himself saw an incident of this kind. It's not make-believe. And the Gemara asks, but perhaps that man who he saw, there was more going on there. Perhaps that man was contemplating sin at the time, and he was punished for his thoughts. Looks like he's honoring his father and shooing away the mother bird, but perhaps as he's returning down the ladder, he starts thinking about committing a grave sexual sin. And maybe that's why he fell. And the Gemara answers that there is a principle that the Holy One, blessed be He, does not link a bad thought to an action, i.e., one is not punished for thoughts alone. That's good. That's good. I myself have all kinds of terrible thoughts come into my head. I'm like, why am I thinking about that? Where did that come from? I don't act on them, thank God. I don't obsess on them. I just let it pass. We are not punished for our thoughts. The Gemara asks, but perhaps he was contemplating idol worship at the time. Oh, idol worship, that's different. And it is written with regard to idol worship, so I may take the house of Israel in their own heart, Ezekiel 14:5, which indicates that one is punished for idolatrous thoughts. right? If you just kind of keep longing to worship an idol and you allow yourself to keep that longing going, yeah, that's idolatry. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yaakov was saying this as well. If it enters your mind that there is reward for performing a mitzvah in this world, why didn't these mitzvahs protect that man so that he should not come to contemplate idol worship? The mitzvah should have protected him. Since that man was not protected from thoughts of idol worship at the time, this indicates that the performance of mitzvahs do not entitle one to merit reward in this world, right? It's like you'll be rewarded. You might have reward in this world. You will have reward in the next world, but you can't say that because I did a bunch of mitzvahs, I'm entitled to a reward in this world. It doesn't work that way. And the Gemara asks, but didn't Rabbi Lazar say that those on the path to perform a mitzvah are not susceptible to harm? And this is the basis for the teaching, or for the practice, that like if you have a friend going on a trip, you give him $1 bill, and it's nice to fold it a little bit special so like just the one is showing. So he'll remember that particular dollar bill, it's not his to keep, he's an agent, he's your agent. And he's going to take that dollar bill and he's going to give it to the needy as charity when he gets to his destination. So now that he's going to deliver your charity dollar to somebody who needs it, at the other end of his journey after he flies across the ocean, etc. So then his entire journey is a journey to perform a mitzvah. You've made him your agent in performing that mitzvah. So he is busy performing a mitzvah that entire trip. And there's an extra measure of protection when we're performing mitzvahs. Is that to say that if he's got that dollar, it's a guarantee that nothing can happen to him? No, but he has an extra measure of protection. Right, so didn't Rabbi Elazar say that those on the path to perform a mitzvah are not susceptible to harm? And how is it possible that this individual who was sent by his father to shoo away the mother bird and gather the chicks to perform that mitzvah, how could he have died? And the Gemara answers there, Rabbi Elazar is referring to those on their way to perform a mitzvah, which is different, as one is not susceptible to harm when he is on his way to fulfill a mitzvah. In this case, the individual was harmed on his return. He had already gone up, shooed away the mother bird, collected a chick, and was coming down the stairs when he fell. So maybe he didn't have that extra measure of protection on the way back. And the Gemara asks, whoa. But didn't Rabbi Elazar say that those on the path to perform a mitzvah are not susceptible to harm, neither when they are on their way to perform the mitzvah, nor when they are returning from performing the mitzvah? The Gemara answers, in that case, it was a rickety ladder, and therefore the danger was established. And anywhere that the danger is established, one may not rely on a miracle. As it is written with regard to God's command to Samuel to anoint David as king in place of Saul. And Samuel said, how will I go? And Saul will hear and kill me. And God said, take in your hand a calf and say, I have come to sacrifice an offering to God. 1 Samuel 16:2. Although God himself issued the command, there was concern with regard to the established dangers. In other words, you might have an extra measure of protection, but if you don't look both ways before you cross the street, it's on you if you get hit by a car. Like, we don't rely on miracles. You don't just say, oh, I'm engaged in mitzvahs. I can just be utterly careless with my safety. No, you have a responsibility to keep your body safe. Rav Yosef said, had Acher, who Acher is the Talmudic nickname of Elisha ben Abuye, who was a great sage, a contemporary of Rabbi Akiva, a friend and colleague of Rabbi Akiva, who went bad. He went really bad. He ended up becoming a collaborator with the Romans to help persecute the Jews. Imagine that, a Talmudic sage who went so wrong that he ended up being a collaborator with the government against the Jews. How could such a thing happen? Once that happened, they stopped calling, and he even has, and there are actually some teachings in the Gemara in his name. He was a teacher of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir remained the only person who would talk to him because he was his direct student. But the question is, how did Elisha ben Abuye, how did Acher go so bad that the sages stopped even saying his name and they just called him the other one? How did that happen? Rav Yosef said, had Acher, literally the other one, the appellation of the former sage Elisha ben Abuye, interpreted this aforementioned verse that it may go well with you homiletically as referring to the world to come, as did Rabbi Yaakov, the son of his daughter. Interesting. Rabbi Yaakov married Acher's daughter. So if he would have understood what Rabbi Yaakov understood, he would not have sinned, right? Acher would not have become Acher. He wouldn't have gone off the path. And the Gemara asks, and what caused Acher to sin? There are those who say that he saw a case like this, where a son went up on the roof at his father's command, dispatched the mother bird, and then died. It was witnessing this episode that led Elisha ben Abuye astray. He came to doubt the entire Torah from that incident. And there are those who say that what actually caused him to go astray is that he saw the tongue of Chutzpit, the disseminator, after the latter was executed by the government, thrown in the street, and dragged along by something else, which is a euphemism for a pig. And he said, "Shall a mouth that produced pearls lap up dirt?" In other words, he saw a great Torah scholar punished and martyred and desecrated by the Romans for what? For teaching Torah. And that made him think, if the one who is teaching Torah with all his heart could end up not only murdered but desecrated in the vilest way like this, maybe it's all phony baloney. And sadly, Acher went way off the derech, became an enemy of the Jews, and did not have a happy end for himself, that's for sure. Rav Tuvi bar Rav Kisna raises a contradiction to Rava and asked, we learned in the Mishna that anyone who performs one mitzvah has goodness bestowed upon him. And this indicates that if one actually performed the mitzvah, yes, he is rewarded. But if he did not perform the mitzvah, no, he does not receive a reward. So he raises a contradiction based on the following statement. If one sits and does not transgress, he receives a reward as one who performs a mitzvah, despite the fact that he does not actually do anything. Rava said to him, there, when it is referring to one who sits and does not transgress, it does not mean that he is merely sitting. Rather, it is speaking of a case where an opportunity to commit a sinful act presents itself to him and he is saved from it, right? He doesn't give in to temptation. He does nothing, but doing nothing is a major accomplishment when there's some massive, sinful temptation in front of you. And this is like the incident involving Rabbi Hanina bar Papi, who was enticed by a certain noblewoman of Rome to engage in sexual intercourse with her. He said a formula of an incantation and was covered with boils and scabs so as to render himself unattractive to her. She performed an act of magic and he was healed. He fled and he hid in a bathhouse that was so dangerous due to the demons that frequented the place that when two people entered together, even during the day, they would be harmed. And the next day, the sages said to him, who protected you in that dangerous place? And Rabbi Hanina bar Papi said to them, there were angels who appeared like two soldiers who guarded me all the night. And they said to him, perhaps a matter of forbidden intercourse presented itself to you and you were saved from it, which is why a miracle occurred for you. As we learn, with regard to anyone to whom a matter of forbidden intercourse presented itself to him, and he was saved from it, a miracle is performed for him. As it says, mighty in strength, who fulfill his word, hearkening to the voice of his word. Psalm 103, verse 20. And this is referring to one such as Rabbi Tzadok and his colleagues. And to what is this referring? We're on the page 40a, just starting, got two more paragraphs, so questions or comments, please get them in now. So to what is this referring? Rabbi Tzadok was enticed by a certain noblewoman to engage in sexual intercourse with her. And he said to her, my heart is weak and I am incapable at present. Is there something to eat that can strengthen me? And she said to him, there is something non-kosher. He said to her, what difference is there? One who performs such an act eats such food as well. So she lit the oven and placed the non-kosher food in it to roast. He climbed and sat in the oven. And she said to him, what is the meaning of this? And he said to her, one who performs this act falls into this, i.e. the fires of Gehenna. She said to him, if I had known that the matter was so serious for you, I would not have caused you such anguish. I mean, there's a lot going on here. But first, how could sages, great righteous Torah scholars, be so tempted to commit adultery, fornication with these, pretty, Roman noblewomen who are trying to seduce them? Really? Is that something they struggle with? Yeah, because they're human, right? They're human. Don't ever think that you won the battle against sin, right? Sin will always lie, tempting you, because we're human. And so that struggle to overcome temptation, to overcome the evil inclination. Wow. Do you see that? The Yetzer Hara is upset that I'm exposing it. Yeah, that struggle is one that we're all constantly working to overcome, right? That battle is never won, but every time we win, the skirmishes in that war, that's a massive accomplishment, a massive, beautiful accomplishment. If you sometimes lose a skirmish, don't lose heart. It happened because you're human. You make an atonement. You face what you've done. You systematize your self-improvement so that the next time that temptation comes, you'll be stronger. You'll know how to deal with it, and you'll overcome it, God willing. The Gemara, I'm very close to done. The Gemara further relates, Rav Kahana would sell baskets woven from palm leaves to women. He was a businessman, that was his trade. And he was enticed by a certain noblewoman to engage in intercourse with her. And he said to her, let me go and adorn myself beforehand. He ascended to the roof and he fell from the roof toward the ground. He was so scared of committing this sin that he was so tempted. He ran to the roof and he actually fell off the roof and he would have died. But what happened? Elijah the prophet came and caught him. Elijah the prophet said to Rav Kahana, you have troubled me to travel 400 parasangs, hundreds of miles, to save you. And Rav Kahana said to him, what caused me to be in this situation of temptation? Was it not poverty, as I'm forced to engage in a trade that leads me to come into contact with women? So Elijah gave him a basket full of dinars to spare him from having to work as this door-to-door salesman, and then he could focus on his Torah study the rest of his days and not have to deal with that temptation. But that idea is look, he's like, I know myself, he's saying, if I have to keep interacting with women, I'm going to be very tempted and I may, fail in my battle against that temptation. Better to create a system for my life where I don't come into contact with them on a typical basis, and I'll be much safer from my evil inclination. And, because he prayed for that, the situation was provided to him, and even no less than the prophet Elijah came to provide it for him. Okay, that's what I've got for us today. Let me see if I've got some questions or comments. Come on, load. Shandor. So the tree with 40 or more different types of fruit on it is against Torah law. Sounds like, yeah. I'm not familiar with that tree. I've never heard of that before. Sounds interesting, but sounds like forbidden by Torah law. Bill says, whoa. Let's back up a minute. Did the Daf just say that the law of diverse kinds is part of the Noahide covenant? No. It was just adjacent to a verse that said, you shall keep all my statutes. And one interpretation of that is that refers to the statutes that existed even before the Torah was given. So the suggestion was made, but that did not become the law. So no, the kilayim is not one of the 7 Noahide commandments. And Tom, are we permitted to evaluate ourselves with regard to our own balance of merits and sins? We're permitted, but it's impossible, right? You can't know. No one has that kind of memory or access to, the law books and the heavenly tribunal to know, because we don't know the apparent weight, of one mitzvah versus another, the apparent weight and impact of one sin versus another. So we have no way to know, do our merits outweigh our transgressions or not? And that is why, I would say both this Gemara, sort of by inference, and the Alter Rebbe in the Tanya, which is the foundational text of Chabad, Hasidic Judaism, both say that we should all consider ourselves as right on the line, right? Like we are exactly poised on that edge. And not only that, but the whole world is poised on that edge. So every mitzvah we do might just tilt us, into inheriting a place and a good place in the world to come. And every mitzvah that we do might just tilt the merit of the whole world in the favor of Mashiach, the Messiah, coming now. May it be so. That's what I've got for us today. With God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow for Kiddushin page 40 at the regular Friday time, noon Pacific. Have a great